Step in my dojo, you
Step in my dojo, you
step in my.
It's weekly download time. It's weekly download time. It's whoa, weekly download time. It's weekly download time. It's weekly download time. And now we're going to learn some stuff. Wow, I think that was the best guest backup on the weekly download we've had. Normally they're like, no, download time. No. But yeah, that was solid, man. He like actually practiced and shit. That
I
was
got
good.
ready.
That was good. Cool. Well, hey, welcome back to the weekly download. I'm really excited. This week's going to be a really fun one. This week is a fun week because we're going to be talking about this week we're talking about making crazy bass sounds. But I want you to understand that this is about more than just making crazy bass sounds. I'm really going to teach you kind of like a little bit of a shift in the way you can think about sound design, right? Because a lot of the time people think that like sound design is just something that you do on a synth, you know, and you're just like, you know, you're doing it with a MIDI sound on a synth, and you know, you're adjusting all the LFOs and the envelopes and stuff, and then you have a preset and you're like done, you know? And if you've watched any of my other videos, you can tell that I view the audio as like a starting point, you know, and a lot of the synthesis that I do, it's not really in a synth. The synthesis is performed with effects and with modulations that are like external to the synth or external to the piece of audio or whatever. So when you're watching me do some of this stuff, you know, I really want you to understand that synthesis isn't just what happens in the synth, and that sound design isn't just what happens inside the instruments. It's also very much about the effects. That's just the white noise, right? So now this doesn't have a pitch, right? But I want it to sound like it's part of the sub. So you can hear the sub. Like it's gating with the sub, but it doesn't really sound that musically related until you put on this amplitude modulation. So in the sampler and the pitch osc tab, this is one of the most overlooked parts of the whole sampler, is the fact that you can do frequency modulation and amplitude modulation right in the sampler. It's amazing, right? So if I turn on this oscillator, the first thing is frequency modulation. And it's going to sound a little crazy. It's already white noise, so you can't really hear what's going on. But if I turn on amplitude modulation, now you'll hear it almost rattling. Right, I'll mute the sub. You hear that? Now if I put it up to here and I put it up to 1 to 1, this is now going to be amplitude modulating at the same pitch as the sub, but it's too fast for your ear to hear it really. Like it doesn't sound much different, right? So to get a lower octave, you can turn this coarse down. See there, it's starting to sound like a rattle, but I like the 125, right? You could also use a MIDI pitch plugin on just that chain and tune that down octaves if you want. So I'll put this back to 1 to 1. Because remember, I've disengaged the scale on this sampler, so it is not pitching the sample. So I can pitch this all the way down, and all it's going to do is make that modulation slower.
So now your pitch knob just basically is
controlling just the pitch of this oscillator, this
nice.
FM AM oscillator. So if I tune it down like that, yeah, and now that's a rhythm that's related to the sub. So now when I put on the sub, even with this weird slower rhythm, you can hear that it's tuned, you know, even though it's slower, and it actually is giving the illusion of an even lower pitch than the sub. Right?
Oh,
so it sounds like the whole room is like rattling, you know? And you can change the noise. broken sounding noise. Here, let's go get some other noise types. But yeah, you can get some like crackle or like, you know, pretty much any sound can go in there.
Sounds already ready.
Yeah, here, this is a cool one. So then remember, you go to sample, you turn the scale to 0. Oh, that needs to be looped. Oh, that one has a little bit nicer top end. I like doing crackles.
I feel so great. It's the best decision I made to really take my music skills to the next level. I just feel so much confidence now in the process and just kind of, you know, writing without having inspiration. Like when else in my life I thought that would be possible. And now I can sit down and have like 3-4 ideas, 4 drops, because I learned drops paid the bills.
Yes.
And I had like 4 awesome drops done in a day. And that's just mind blowing.
Okay. So now this is the next bass, and this is again made with just parallel chains off of the main bass. So I'll play it, you know, just you can hear what it's like, and then I'll show you how I made it. Okay, so let's deactivate all these racks and all these effects and stuff, and then I'll show you some of this shit. Actually, here, I'm gonna save this. Stereo OTT. That's some useful shit. I'll explain why in a minute. Okay, so turn off all this stuff, all this crazy stuff here. And yeah, so now we've got the sub, which is being routed to our subs channel, right? So that's the sub is coming out there. And then the second layer, I am doing some amplitude modulation and an amp. Okay, so here is the sound, right? Oh wait, yeah. I had to turn that off. So you can't hear it. If I turn the sub off, yeah, you can barely hear it. It's not really making much of a sound until I put this amp on. And then I'm using a square wave to give it those hard edges. Okay, so now I wanted to boost this signal up, so I put a glue compressor on it. And then I wanted to add some oh yeah, and then I put a bandpass filter with an envelope. And in the filters, always change the circuit to something not clean, because the clean one just doesn't sound as good. But I put a bandpass filter on it. I put the bandpass filter on it. And then this shaper. And this little arrow makes it so you can put the distortion after the filter. You can change distortion types. You know. Right, and then I wanted to really bring up the highs on this sound, so I wanted to put up some OTT on it, right? So here, I'll get OTT, and I'll put OTT on not stereo, and you can see the problem here. I'm really doing that because in my stereo, to make it stereo, I turn this LFO on, and then I put the left and right out of phase with each other, and that this will make different filters for the left and right ear. You're moving back and forth. But the problem is, like, look at the level on this sound. That stereo is going back and forth really hard, right? That's because nearly every compressor has a mono volume meter that it's applying the exact same compression to both the left and the right speakers based on a summed mono version of the signal, which kills the width. And it causes a big problem in terms of, you know, you can get some weird, I'm getting weird panning and I'm losing the width. Yeah. So now what I did was I took OTT and then I made a separate left channel and a right channel. So I used a utility plugin to make sure that the left channel is only taking from the left side, and then I panned it hard left. And I made a utility plugin to make sure that the right channel is only listening to the right side, and then I panned it hard right. And now here's normal OTT. stereo OTT. And you'll notice that a lot of these channels, I'm fucking driving them really hard because I'm running into a limiter over here, and I want to push them into that limiter. A lot of these channels are clipping, but you're never actually clipping in a floating point system until you hit the output stage. But yeah, way more present with that stereo OTT. So go get that stereo OTT rack later. So I wanted to add a little bit of overdrive to the mids because there's a lot in the highs, but not much in the mids. So I added some overdrive to the mids. Give it a bit more body. And then I wanted to add some chorus, but I just wanted that chorus in the mids. So I added it in a parallel chain here. That's a pretty hard chorus. And then another fun thing a lot of people don't know about, you can sidechain the filters. So now the filters are dipping with the kick. Here, I'll turn up the resonance. Hear that dipping? So it sounds like a sidechain. And then I put another filter on here. Anytime you put on this PRD mode, that's the Moog mode, I put that on and I turn the drive up. So you'll see a lot of these filters because everything has the same filters in Ableton. So here you can see I put OSR as the only non-clean circuit. But I put that on there, and then these filters, I've got this one on Moog mode, and then this one is also on Moog mode, and they each have a little bit of drive. And then the LFO in the filter, I've added more stereo stuff to it because when you put them out of phase, that's going to make a slight difference between the left and right and a little bit more stereo movement there. And then I wanted to have a stereo bit reduction effect with an envelope on it. So I did the same stereo splitting left and right here. And then with a dry chain that's 12 dB louder, so to maintain the kind of power of it. And then I macroed the left and right by just right-clicking, map to macro 1, right-click, map to macro 1. And the mapping editor, I made them slightly different values. So I cut a little bit off the top on one of them and a little bit on off the bottom on the other one. And that means that they're going to be really related, but slightly different. Right-clicking, map to macro 1, right-click, map to macro 1. And the mapping editor, I made them slightly different values. So I cut a little bit off the top on one of them and a little bit on off the bottom on the other one. And that means that they're going to be really related, but slightly different. And then I got the Max for Live envelope, which is very fucking cool and free. I think it's in one of the free Ableton Live Max for Live packs. And I've now put an envelope and I've set it to max at 90% and minimum at 47%. And it's going to provide a little bit of an envelope going down. Right? So that's that layer. And then I added this other layer, which is again another duplicate. And this is a high pass with tons of distortion. Again, going with an envelope on it. Just to get that like squelchy shit up top. And you can, the edges that you're hearing, that tick, tick, tick that sounds like an oscillator, it's the FM oscillator. I'll turn that off. See, that's the sound without it. Can't even really hear anything. But then you turn that off. You get that like party thing is that it, because the subs in it are like kind of the phase is drifting a little bit, so you get that. Then that fills in the top, and then you get. And then with the sub, you get this. It's got that like stereo, like lots of poles moving around to give it that kind of like acid sound, you know? So that's that one. This is another variation of that same sort of an idea. I've got another envelope here. Same thing with the sub routing out, and then a copy of the sub that's having all this stuff done to it. And I don't high pass everything until the end here, because I want the bass to be feeding into that distortion. If we high pass it before we add distortion, there's not going to be anything left because it's a sub bass sound, right? So you need that low end. But yeah, so you can go through this rack. This is, again, all just Ableton stuff. This one's a bit simpler. There's some FM going on this one, not AM. That's with this oscillator. If I turn this up. A lot of different FM sounds out of that. I decided on this one. This envelope means that it's like moving, so you hear it going. It's from that. I turned a little bit of the spread up. The spread means that it's like slightly detuning the left and right ears, which is fine because we have the sub coming out separate. And then this is the thing a lot of people don't know about. The echo, check out the echo deep dive. It's awesome. We go into super detail about the echo, but the echo has this little D that when you clip it, that means that you can drive the signal into the analog modeled circuit and get some distortion. So if I turn this off, I'm not going to get distortion, but if I turn the D on, I can drive this input. And that gives me some more, a different type of distortion. After that, I again did some stereo erosion. I copied that same rack. Stereo erosion. And then I put the stereo OTT again. Oh, what just happened? Oh, that was weird. Okay. Stereo OTT. So I put the stereo OTT again. And a lot of the time when you have OTT, like check it out, if I turn this gate off, it's like there's that reverb. Right, I wanted to kill that, so just gets rid of that, makes it all clean. Because I turned the reverb up on this guy. This gives it a little bit more spatialization. All right, so now I showed you this one already, but this is literally just the 128 of basses, and I just did the same routing trick, and I wanted to just see that routing trick works, So this one, just remember I put the high pass, and I was just trying to make a quick riff, like going back and forth.
It's like that.